because we have even more games coming up in terms of those mainstream market games. And this one is happening on Labor Day. So everybody and their mama going to be off. And also, unlike those other two games that we finished talking about, this game is actually happening at a college campus. Clemson coming in as a top 10 team in their own rights. They will be going on the road to take on the Duke Blue Devils. And Duke is getting some love as well. Duke is a team not ranked in the top 25, but they are receiving AP top 25 poll vote consideration. Now, who knows if Duke actually gets into the top 25, because they actually do have a pretty difficult schedule by ACC standards, right? So that's something that I do definitely want to bring up. Now, that being considered, this could be a sneaky good game as well. I mentioned it in the intro. Could this be a possible trap game for Clemson? Because Clemson will certainly have bigger fish to fry as the season progresses, right? They'll have Florida State in the regular season. They will also play against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame got their number last year as well. South Carolina as well. We have them, while they're not an AP top 25 team, we do have them power rated as a top 25 squad themselves. So Clemson's going to have more difficult games. And this is also a conference game. Keep in mind, this is also a conference game. So conference games, you never know what can happen in these conference games. Seems like there's a little bit more parity than maybe in your non-conference games. There's less upsets in the non-conference season, in my opinion. Now, Clemson has had their number as of late. They have won 5 in a row against the Duke Blue Devils, and they have also won 10 of their last 11, with the last time Duke beating Clemson all the way back in 2004. So it was almost 20 years ago, the last time that this happens. Now, let's go ahead, as we've done for the first couple of games already. What are the keys to this particular game? So, for starters, I think what's really important is Clemson needs to be able to stop the run. Yes, I know Duke is probably what you don't think about in terms of being that good running team, per se. But Clemson, we know that they have a really darn good run defense. And this is a time in college football where no matter how good your secondary is, every once in a while, there's going to be a team that's going to have 300 yards or more passing. And the South Carolina game aside, one thing that Clemson was really good at on the defensive side of the ball was being able to stop the run. The South Carolina game was different, but in every other game, they were a team that shut down the run pretty well. Now, at the same time, they did allow 200 rushing yards twice. They lost to Notre Dame, and they almost lost to Florida State too. Tennessee ran it for 124 yards, but Tennessee couldn't do anything offensively through the air. Now, even if they do stop the run, Clemson is not invincible. In that South Carolina game, they won by throwing the ball straight up and down. They did not rely on the running game. So if Duke is going to be able to pull this win off, they're going to have to be able to have that South Carolina type of game. Run the ball decently enough, be in that 4-yard per carry range. Not great, but keep Clemson honest, right? That's how Duke could possibly win this game. It also matters how they start as well. So Clemson is one of the best teams in terms of starting out well. If you want to take a look at Clemson's first quarter scoring, Clemson won 110-48. That's in first quarters throughout the Clemson Tiger football season. So if Clemson is able to get those types of starts, they can maybe build some ground between them and Duke, and Duke never gets within a possession after the first quarter. It could happen. We also know that Clemson was pretty good at getting to the quarterback last year. They ended up with 44 sacks last year. Well, on the other end, their offensive line was all right, allowed 28 sacks. Cool. But what about Duke? How does Duke pull this upset off? Well, few things. First, we talked about keep Clemson in striking distance. Survive Clemson's toughest punch in the first quarter. If you can survive Clemson's toughest punch in the first quarter, I think you can give yourself a shot for sure. Time possession could also be important as well. Duke, on average, had the ball for 33 minutes a game, while their opponents less than 27 minutes. So Duke winning the time possession is going to be real critical in terms of winning this game. Put together some methodical drives and maybe limit the possessions that Clemson gets in this game, because Clemson, they certainly have a couple of playmakers. Cade Klubnik, for example, Will Shipley to go with that as well. They got some playmakers there on the offensive side of the ball. And then finally for Duke, be able to rise to the occasion in that second half. Ride that home field advantage. Duke's fourth quarter scoring, for example, they scored 133 points throughout the season in the fourth quarter. So if it's close going into the fourth, watch out. Because home field advantage, and in these games where the longer that it's close, the longer that you do end up seeing the underdog starting to believe that, hey, we can really do this. And it's going to be rocking in that particular stadium, because it is going to be such a marquee game for Duke. For Duke, this is their Super Bowl. Let's make it very clear. This is Duke's Super Bowl right here, right now. So, at the end of the day, what are we looking at in terms of a spread? So, Clemson is at minus 12.5. That's as of August 31st. That's when I'm recording this podcast. And according to the power ratings that are put forth, that we put together here, they are currently sitting at a minus 16.5. That's where they currently are, according to the Any Given Saturday power model. And as much as I talk about how good Duke could possibly pull this off, I also generally agree with how Clemson is going to handle this game. I think that this is going to be the type of game where the talent on Clemson's roster is going to show as we progress into this game longer and longer and longer. And while I remember watching spring ball with Duke, and Duke, don't get me wrong, has plenty of upside in terms of his season. They got some veterans. Wasn't all that impressed with their spring game in terms of the talent level. I don't know if they rise to the occasion here tonight. Duke could be a team that does get better as the season goes on. But in terms of Monday night, I do think Clemson wins this game. And, we'll see what Duke is made of. But I don't expect Duke to win. But should be an interesting game to see how Cade Klubnik's first start of 2023 goes, as he was the guy that pushed DJU out the door. It's going to be an interesting storyline to certainly watch out for.